don't know if I'll be able to get it in the blue books.
I love so many of these now. When just like
you're gonna try and get the challenge of trying to get a mention of a HCV driver in the
blurring is occurring. You need like merch with it.
Oh, he's great, isn't he?
Thank you for supporting our channel. Thank you for supporting Wizan. Please like, subscribe, comment, and hit the notification bell for any future videos. Tom, welcome back, and back from Thailand, Cambodia, Laos. You are now probably the second biggest taxi driver on YouTube because Ollie is coming for you.
He's coming for me.
Isn't it good, Ollie?
Don't want to be hypocritical, but I am not a massive watcher of YouTube. Ollie's got a very therapeutic mannerism, isn't it?
It's different. That what I like about it, and why people are like, oh, it's treading on your toes, whatever. It's like, no, like it's completely different because it's more like, look, this is the route I'm taking, and it is just that's the shot, that's what you've got. I mean, it's in my list of maybe I should try stuff like this. I'm glad someone's jumped on that, and there's going to be loads of other ways of attacking it as well. Yeah. I like the story behind my shift. You know, how I was feeling when I went to work that day, who I interacted with. That's kind of what I want to try and get across in my videos. But obviously his is more, like you say, it's that therapeutic nature. It's the drive itself.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, people who are going to pass out, they want to see what it is that they're going to be doing. But didn't you get some problems from TfL for that kind of filming?
Yeah. So I got, basically, there was a couple of us on YouTube at the time that were doing it. I think I was just being a bit silly by putting like GoPros everywhere on the cab and, you know, not quite knowing where the law is on this sort of thing. But I did get some clarification through my union. They went to a few high ups at TfL and just kind of said, look, what's the sort of viability of this? And it was mainly that it needed to be TfL approved CCTV. The TfL didn't come back and say, oh, you can do it, but it's got to be this XYZ. It was more like they just kind of threw like the policy book at you, which is basically like when you're working, any form of CCTV needs to be TfL approved, which technically means it has to be a dash camera. So everything has to be dash camera only, basically. And that's the reason why I found out that every TfL approved dash camera has a lock on it, because it's all to do with GDPR and data. Even though the data is just filming the streets directly in front of you, that's technically data that you as a driver hold.
Yeah.
Technically, every driver who has a dash camera needs an ICO license.
Because they're not allowed to collect
it's a
information.
business. It's not like a personal property or anything like that. Yes. And you hold data.
I was going to say, it's not like just someone holding their phone, is it, in the street?
No.
You're doing it as a profession.
Yes.
What you're doing. Not the videoing, but you're acting as a professional.
And even though that dash camera is only looking out the front there, and it's basically the data is insignificant, it technically you still hold data on it. Someone could nick that out there if there was. Yeah. Anyway, so I went down that, and so I'm still kind of fearful every time I put a video up.
So do you think Ollie can get into trouble for his style of video?
I think this is the thing. If you go through, it's like anything we do as taxi drivers. If you look hard enough into the literature of it, any one of us could lose our livelihood because of one thing that we do.
Yeah. Especially now. I mean, they
like
seem
the
to have gone
example
crazy.
of that Jen, I think Paul mentioned, was who knocked over a moped and then did the right thing by reporting it.
That was you, David. They reversed out.
It wasn't me. That was one of Paul's drivers, wasn't it?
Yeah, reversed out. I always imagine it being Fleet Street he's reversing out onto. I
don't know why I saw that as well. Yeah.
Did you? Yeah.
Wasn't he Salisbury Court or Salisbury Square?
Maybe that's why we've imagined. So somewhere we've picked up a piece of information that says he's reversing out onto Fleet Street, and I am picturing Dorset Rise.
He's just turning around into a side street. Might be in Salisbury Square. There's not much of a square left. No, been there lately. It's a massive building site.
He pulled into a street and it was blocked by a vehicle, so he couldn't get through the street. So he had to reverse out. So it was a one-way street. So he is coming technically reversing out of a one-way street. Clipped the bike. Could have driven off. Stood it up. Yeah, that was
But
outrageous.
that's what I mean, though. But, like, I mean, I'm just super paranoid with basically anything I do in the cab, anything I do on YouTube. It's the reason why I try and make such a variety of videos. It's because if I ever just make one type of video, and that's kind of all my income and activities on YouTube is related to that, and it gets pulled, I'm screwed, basically. Which is annoying because you feel like you're doing a favourable thing, but someone comes down and you're like, well, actually, you're holding images of people, you know, that person wasn't blurred, XYZ. So, and annoying. It would be great if there was actually a representative there who turned around and said, right, you are doing a good job, or you're not doing a good job. Can you do it more like this? But
no, they're very.
As we all know, it's very
woke.
Yeah,
woke, Dave. Yeah, we'll go for woke. TfL is woke.
I think it's like the DMV. Like, I imagine what the DMV is like in America or something. Computer says no.
Yeah,
I think anything official now has gone that way. They're all scared of the shadow, aren't they?
Yeah, but the world has gone bananas in the sense that the people that have slowly been given all the jobs are of a certain genre.
Yeah.
They seem to be, especially government jobs, government positions.
We said this about TfL, though. I mean, I always said, well, the people that adjudicate over drivers and give them a 3-month suspension or a month suspension, are they
Cab drivers.
qualified?
Yeah.
I.e., have they done the knowledge? Because otherwise they're unqualified to adjudicate. You wouldn't have a bus driver adjudicate over a bricklayer's job.
No.
But we're in the position and have unqualified people who've never been a cab driver, never done the knowledge, adjudicating as if they know. All they're doing is reading the book and enforcing it as hard, as harsh as they like. And that's not, I don't think it's a good position to be in. You can cut that out.
Cut it out. We digress.
Yeah, we leave it in.
Ollie's coming in tomorrow. We're gonna give him some exposure, even though he gets more views than us in a day than we do in a week.
Man.
And it's something you two could do. It's anyone else could put it in the comments as well. 3 tips for doing the knowledge. Maybe doing blue books or anything.
Tips for doing the blue book.
Yeah, anything. Just not a whole load of them. We don't need.
Why would you do the runs with the points at the same time, first of all? What's the benefit?
Well, I did hear on some video, I don't know where it was, they said that it saves you going back over it. But that's the benefit of doing it again, because you need to go back for more visual.
Okay,
the more times you go down a road, like your own road, you know it like the back of your hand. I'll give you an example. When I drive in the country and I go out for lunch, I'm the slowest driver in the country because all those people drive.
HGV?
No, that's it. Even in my I'm quick in an HGV because you can really push them ones around. But no, I am. I'll tell you why. Because I'm not used to that country lane. I'm not used to where that bend comes up. I'm not used to the camphor. The people that live there and do that same route, because they have to drive as well all the time. They can't walk to the local high street. Most of them can't. They tend to. Then they drive so fast. It's 60 mile an hour down a country lane and.
What's that got to do with doing the points for the runs?
That's familiarity.
Oh,
so
familiarity.
The more times you go back over something, the more familiar you are with knowing where that right turn comes up.
So let me point out
Someone
what you just said.
tries to do it from a map, for instance, and only done it from a map and street view, and that street view's out of date, and there's no longer a Starbucks on the corner, it's now a restaurant somewhere. They drive past the end of the turning. Anyone who goes up and down, has been up and down there multiple times, just go, God, they've put something else on the end of that.
Yes. So one of the things that they're pointing out as being the benefit, which is that you don't have to go back, that you're going to have to make less visits, is actually a negative.
It is a negative,
because the visits are an imperative to what you're trying to develop. So they've spun it into a positive when in actual fact it's not a positive. You're not gaining anything by the actual denying of extra visits or saying that you're not going to have to make extra visits. But they do insinuate that you're going to have to go back to Manor House Station. So if you're not doing the points while you're doing the runs, the insinuation, which is a bit of a smoke and mirror, is that you're going to go to Manor House Station to do your points, and then you're going to go to Gibson Square to do your points, which is not the truth. That's not what's going to happen. Your points are going to be organised based on their geographical position, one after the other anyway. Yep. But it is true. So what else do they say is a benefit to doing it in with the points and the runs together?
I don't know if it's been listed as a benefit, but I found that you could sort of use points in the middle of the route sometimes. So I did the knowledge in a really weird way. I just kind of cobbled all bits together. And it probably was against, I would have done much better had I had a bit of a better schedule. But, the theory, like you just alluded to, was that, you pick up some at the start, pick up some at the end. But I would actually kind of pick up some midway through because that would help me with the actually remembering the streets and the roads. One that comes to me instantly now is Kentish Town Police Station was on Holmes Road. And I just thought I'd make the link of like Sherlock Holmes Police Station, that sort of thing. And then that was kind of midway through. I remember it being midway through a Blue Book run. Yeah. And then that helps, you see those turns as they happen. So
what you're saying as well, though, is actually quite a good thing. So this is one of the tips in terms of an additional, if you've got extra capacity, if you're finding something easier and you want to lift it a little more.
This is what you said, that extra capacity, though. It's obviously, if it fits.
When you're doing it along the route, it's actually nowhere near as difficult as doing it outside of the route because this is one of the things that people don't realise is, first of all, the difference between people isn't the techniques they use, but is their ability as an individual to absorb. Let's just use a number. You can remember 40 things, that's where you're comfortable. I can remember 50, you can remember 70. That's the difference in us as individuals. But the technique for us to remember those things is in essence pretty much the same. I think even Mark Rober does a video about it. And if not Mark Rober, there's another guy who's very scientific on YouTube who does a video about it. It's a video about we all learn in different ways. I'm a visual learner and you're not a visual learner. And they do some experiments and some tests, and pretty much it concludes that we all learn exactly the same way. And you're just kidding yourself with your techniques. But learning points along the route was something we always would suggest, and only do it when you feel comfortable that you're going past something. And if this run that you're doing is 25 roads long, then I don't really want to take much notice of this particular hotel because I'm already struggling with these 25 roads. But again, if the 25 roads are ones that you're semi-familiar with, then I will take notice of this, and my subconscious may remember it anyway. So, but then when you digress and you go outside of that and you maybe do a quarter-mile radius, for example, people don't realise, let's say the 8-point scenario, you're doing 8 points. Those 8 points are on 8 different roads that are not part of your run. So now there's 16 objects that you're remembering that are not part of the run. The run itself will be 12. Your capacity is 50 objects for the day. And you're now one run and one radius map in, and you're pretty much coming to the pinnacle of your capacity of what you can remember. So
yeah, having to link those points into like the start of the run, because if you've only just started doing blue books, like that's going to be marooned like out in this quarter-mile dumbbell or whatever, like doing nothing. You've then got to link that in somehow. So if it's already on the run or on the route, that you haven't got to really process that much more. If it's already quite a visual point like a police station, you're not really going to forget that.
No, yeah.
But
and generally, like you say, police stations, it is good to, it's fairly easy to pick up stuff that's along that capacity, that size of
visual
point.
stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was, for me, the points that I always found hardest, and I even gave up on them, is the more ordinary it was, the harder it was. And I used to point out something silly, like there was a house called Stargazer House, piece of cake. You see a house called Stargazer House, it's pretty much done. You see a house called John House, you suddenly think, or London House, which was difficult because there was, I think, 5 or 6 London houses. Did you ever point at London House?
Can't remember.
There was a Mecklenburg Square London House. There was
I remember that.
There was a London House down in Merton Road. And there was, you suddenly think, oh, is it really? And the chances of being asked it. We done the chances of being asked, and you pointed out, you nailed a couple of 33 million to 1 shots, didn't you?
Yeah.
Few in a row. Was it Wilkins' appearance?
I think all that was just being a bit overly curious about stuff. Like I still see it now. Like one of the points that came up, it was a Swire on my rec. It was Cherry Duck Studios, and I think that was because at the time The Apprentice had been on, and that was one of the design agencies down in Wapping that gets featured in The Apprentice. So obviously it was top of his mind, and I have no idea where I had it from. And then so just a few odd ones. Like it'd just be like it would have been a random nondescript house that, not. Yeah, like you say, you don't want to go out busting a gut trying to learn those because it's so improbable.
Yes.
But if they're there anyway, if you can just remember them for one reason or the other.
Yeah, but what you pointed out there is another phenomenon with the knowledge, which I really love. When you pull a point with no idea of how the hell you know it.
Yeah.
You've just, I'm doing the knowledge and therefore I've picked it up.
Some stick.
Yeah.
Don't they, no matter what.
Yeah, but they stick with you out and you didn't even know you even looked at it. You didn't even know that it was there in your repertoire and someone asked it.
And you often,
that's how I drive a cab most days.
You often find, though, sometimes, even though you're not 100% sure and you ain't heard of it for ages, someone gets in and says it, your first instinct is right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wherever you roughly thought it's roughly in that bit, and you quickly look and go, God, I was right. Yeah.
Sometimes a postcode just flashes to my mind and I'm like, Bayswater. And then, you say it's like, you doubt yourself. You think, oh, maybe it's not. And then,
He used to say that, Pricey, didn't he?
Right.
He used to say that. Your first instinct is usually right. If when you're sitting in that chair, if you can't think of nothing else, just go with it.
Yeah, no, your instinct is generally right. I work on that idea anyway when we're practicing points, that work on the reflex. So whatever's fired into your brain, fire that out. And in general, you're going to be correct and just trust that technique. And the problem you get from that is, as a lot of people point out, is you could say, for example, Oliver Plunkett Chapel is in Nightingale Lane. And then you think, where the hell is Nightingale Lane? And you're playing double catch up because you've got to place the point, and maybe even places like Chandos Place, Dave. Hey, little in joke there. Chandos Place.
Well, I'm not going to name names, are we?
Don't name names.
No, we won't name names. On St George's Day this year, there's someone we know very well was telling us. We know him very well. He got a cab, held a cab with a couple of his friends, and a cab pulled up with an examiner driving. And he asked for Chandos Place, and the examiner never knew it. And he said, "Where's that?" Well, it made us all chuckle. But saying about them, I think calling your blue books is probably one of the most biggest tips you say? You must have your language.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's got to be. You cannot go with many days, or say for a week you drop doing.
No,
you can't.
you mustn't.
You can't.
There's so many other benefits to it as well, and one of them is just how the words roll out of your mouth.
Yes.
How well you can recall. Because even if it is in your brain, if you can't enunciate the words properly, that's part of the appearance. You've got to be able to get it out.
Yeah.
So if it's a particularly, I don't know, if it's like a street name that's difficult to pronounce or you find it difficult, guess what? It's a hell of a lot more difficult in the chair when you've got stress against you and you're thinking, how do I pronounce it? Oh, no.
Did you find it sometimes it felt like an out-of-body experience because the words just come out of your mouth, and at the end of it you sat there going, how did I just say that?
Yeah.
Because the pressure's on, you're sweating, isn't it? It's running down.
I used to say to people, look, if you could say this, if you can say, leave on Battle Street, right Covenant Street, left Caledon Road, left Carnegie Street, right Mule Street, forward Road Street, forward Pondent Rice, forward King's Cross Road, right Acton Street, left Grazing Road, right Gilbert Street, left Gilbert Place, forward into Lamb's Conduit, right Great Emo Street, forward into Queen Square, or left into Queen Square. If you could say it as... I mean, I mumbled a little bit there, but...
I followed all of that, though. Yeah.
Right. If you can say it like that, I can think it 3 times faster than that, which means I can send that out and say, is that the direction I want to go in for a particular route? So you've got little feelers you can send out. Whereas if you can't say it, and a guy came today and he said to me, so I've got to learn these runs, yeah? And I said, yes. So I read them, yeah? And I said, no, you don't read them. You've got to be able to call them without looking at it. And he went on a little bit further and he said, so when I'm reading these, I said, no, you don't want to read them. You want to be able to say them without looking. He said, oh, okay. So do I start at the top and I read them down? No. So I'm going to tell you one more time. You don't read them. If you can read them, you're going to get nothing. And the comparison to reading would be, you're going to read one of the Harry Potter books, and I want you to tell me what happened in the Harry Potter book, word for what it said, without making a mistake. So you've got to be able to say it. And the whole vocabulary, like you say, the speed of thought. And you're already trying to think of your direction. And if you can't say the words, you've just made the whole thing, by degree, drastically harder. So we're going to think of our direction, and the words is easy. The language is there, easy. And like you said, Dave, missing a day of call over, it's not such a disaster missing a day, but a day turns into a habit, and then it's a week, and then you're knackered, and then you start thinking, oh God, I used to be so good.
With any of these things, it's just the repetition is where it compounds the magic in that. If you're going to the gym, it's like, it's not actually that one intense workout that's going to give you the results. It's the constant just stacking it, adding it each day, and just solidifying it. And I think the distinction you put there was that you're not reading the runs. I feel like when I used to call them, I would actually try and feel them. Like that's also an important distinction. So when you are making the lefts and the rights, you're seeing those lefts and rights come up. And whatever I could do to try and just make it as solid and visceral as possible. Because if you're just running through it, that's not...
No, there is a couple of things that you just hit on there. For a start, when a lot of people are calling, and I think I'll probably guilty of it as myself as well, but you are leave on the left, the right into thingy, forward into, and the and actions are actually expressing where your mind is thinking. But also, a lot of people make the fundamental mistake of thinking that seeing the 3D images of the street, the visualization aspect, the visualization aspect is irrelevant compared to the actual seeing of the map that you're looking at down upon, because that's GPS. Looking down upon your map in your mind's eye and seeing where you want to go off to get to Edgware, whereas you're sitting in the Marylebone Road now, just seeing Marylebone Road dimensions.
Really, that's more like actual taxi driver view, really, not knowledge, calling over in the chair, seeing the map line. Well, one trick I'd done for that actually was that, I don't know where I got the idea from, but I just drew up all of my Blue Book runs and I saved them in my phone. So I had 4 books, 320 runs, and I could look at that line and go, oh right, I know that's Manor Station at Gibson Square, and I know that's, I don't know any other Blue Books now, but you could just see that by the picture of that line, and then that would always sort of come to front of mind, and then I could just call it based off of that.
Can you still call any Blue Book runs?
No.
Not even the first one?
Just about. It's not going to be factually correct. I could see it, but I'm probably going to skip a road or something there.
Did you pen the Blue Book runs?
Yes, but that was it because I drew them in. Because rather than penning them every single time, maybe if there was one I was a bit stuck on or wasn't as good, I'd go back and pen it back up. But I had them all in saved. I'd pen them
same.
once, take a photo, and then I would then revert back to those photos.
The repetition of penning the blue book runs is a time-consuming act that will have less reward than the actual act of doing other things, like calling them over. So the penning of blue book runs is okay when they're new.
Once.
Yeah. When it's new and you're trying to get some shape of what it did, yeah, great. But I see people that go out and they say to me, yeah, I pen my runs every day. And they say, oh, okay. How many did you do? Oh, I do 20. Well, you could have probably called 80.
Yeah.
And that calling of the 80 is going to be far more beneficial than that penning of 20. Plus, once you've done your blue books, the knowledge is penning on for a partner and calling. So there's loads of penning on that gets done later regardless. So...
But do it once. When you just do it once, as you can see around the map, see where they go once.
I think doing it once helps a lot of people. For me, I didn't care whether you do it or not. I don't think it's a necessity, but I do think for some people it's their first involvement of finding places on the map, looking at them, understanding where Manor House Station is on the map and following the roads through.
It kind of helped as well before you went out and did the run to kind of have a rough idea where you'd go in. So you wouldn't go the wrong way up Green Lanes and end up at Wood Green Shopping Centre. Or, just... how far do I have to go before I get a right turn? Because that's the most frustrating thing when you're out running a run and you're just looking at every single street sign.
Yeah.
Not that one. Not that one. Did I miss it ages ago all the way back down there?
Well, this will bring up the argument of having a map on your board.
Yeah, I did.
Which I'm completely against.
Cabby's mate now.
I didn't do it.
No, a map on your board for me is like, what's the thing they do in the forest for children where they go on treasure hunts, where they have there's a name for it, isn't there? There's a speciality for people who find their way through the woods.
Scavenger hunt.
Is it scavenger hunt?
Oh, no, I'm thinking it was...
No, there is a name for it. Like
orienteering.
Orienteering. Yeah. That's the name. Yeah, well done. Orienteering. And basically, the idea would be this. With orienteering, it's about using all the technology that you have, maps and compasses and whatever, to get from A to B. But if you then took them away, you do the journey first once, and then you take all that away from them and say, do it again. But they can't. And the thing is that if you didn't give them any of that and they had to find their journey, they would have made landmarks all the way through. So when you have a map and you're reading that map or you're reading GPS, you're not creating any memories of landmarks or turnings or anything to make it better for the future. So they get confused and think that the idea is to get from A to B quickly when it's not. It's to get from A to B remembering as much as you can to be able to get from A to B. So at the map on the board, I always said, like you, Dave, with the drivers and my dad being a driver, when you open a map book and you want to look where you want to go, the fact that you're going to close it means that you're actually going to commit to memory key issues of what you looked at, and then you drive that. And that reenacting of what you've looked at is all creating a brand new memory and learning of what you did. Whereas with sat-nav people, it says turn left here. You take no notice of what you're doing. You do the left and so on. So don't have a map on your board.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mm-hmm. I couldn't. I didn't have a...
Didn't have a board.
Yeah, didn't have a board to put it on. So I just had the books just on the top there with just the name of the streets, and that was all I had to go by.
You had that Lamborghini bike, didn't you?
Oh, Suzuki Bandit, mate.
Suzuki, what is it, a 50cc?
600, mate.
Oh, oh, you had a proper bike.
Yeah, because I was coming on the M11 on it, so I couldn't...
Was it comfortable?
No, not really.
You're a little bit forward, didn't you?
Yeah, and then the wind on the M11 and that board would probably just shatter into pieces, I guess, but...
You didn't really do any miles on the bike, though, Dave. That's your claim
1100 to 1,100, isn't it?
Yeah.
So from new.
But you had the miles already done.
Yeah, I mean, I did go out sometimes in cars, and I've told you before, in trucks, and I was working. I've done.
Yeah, you've done the dust cart. We did the dust cart one. It was brilliant.
It's different when you've driven for that many years, and I was driving private car as well. So it was Great Mulberry Street, for instance, CNBC 16 Great Mulberry Street. What would I go and look at Liberties for when I've driven there for donkey's years? What would I go and look at? Palladium? I've been to the London Palladium.
Yeah.
In 1974, I went to see Petulia Clark and Mike Reid at London Palladium. So why on earth would I go back all these years I've been going there?
Yeah.
To look at something or what? It just seemed ridiculous. It's like looking at your own house.
Well, you've just reminded me of a question that's come up on the YouTube about one of the videos. Can you do the knowledge by computer at home?
Well, I reckon you could do it and you could pass, but I don't think you're a very good cab driver because you just wouldn't be able to do it. And that's the whole point of the visuals and the multiple times of being out. I mean, I keep saying to James now, I go, get up, call your books, go through some points, get out there in the streets, and do some more points. I think he's got a few missing pieces to do. Go and get out there. Then come to school on the way home and make a day of it. Do it like a job.
Yeah.
But the mixture of the map, the language, which is the blue books, the map in your head and the visual. When you get out, you'll be able to transfer that into driving, won't you?
Yes. Because that then becomes like, when you're just anywhere in London, what is the relationship from where you are right now to what's over there? Which direction am I heading in?
Yes.
You can't get that without all those other bits that you just touched upon.
And it's an association.
You won't never get that with Street View, of course.
No, and that's what I'm going to agree with you that I think you can do it, but it's certainly going to be harder and less efficient, and the overall achievement of what you've done is, I imagine you're going to drive out there and think, I have no idea where I am.
Yeah.
I can look at, I know you played that geographical game.
GeoGuessr.
If you did that for London streets, we'd all have a fairly good shot, but some places that are even obvious, you might be a picture of Sloane Street and you think,
because the way it curves or the date of when it was taken, you're like,
I don't really like, and then they say it's Sloane Street, you think, oh yeah, so it's not so easy. And I also feel this visual memory idea as well, where you say, you have to visually see the streets. We don't see anything true. This is an imaginary thing. If I ask you to tell me right now, for example, what do we see in Oxford Street, I can't describe to you what I'm seeing. It's a magical representation of my Oxford Street.
Yep.
It's not a picture or a photograph or anything like that.
But when you're there, isn't it 3D?
When you're there, it's 3D. Or you're in the thing.
Right.
But we know where we are.
When you're there is a different, completely. If you haven't done anything, and Street View is great. I think it's great for revision.
Mm-hmm.
I.e., you've been there before, and it may have faded a little bit. I know the point. I'm not sure. And you look at it and go, "God, yeah, I remember being there," because you've revised it, but you still got to have gone there.
Yeah,
you might be able to with some points, and the only ways I would do it with some points is if, say, I'd done 5 points in one street and I knew that street well, and there's a new restaurant, I wouldn't go back to look at that new restaurant.
Yeah, no,
because I know it's between 2 points. I know, okay, it's between those points. Yeah. I know exactly, and it's just
we can do that now all day long ourselves, because if there's a new restaurant in Greek Street and we look it up on Google Street, if we can make the mental association with that, that's perfect for us. We don't need to go and look at that. We've been there plenty.
If you're confident enough that that's definitely where it is, because at the end of the day, when you communicate that to an examiner, the examiner's not seeing your view of how it looks in your head.
No.
They're just seeing your confidence and interpretation of where it is in your head.
Yeah. Have you cheated ever on points in an appearance?
Wow. My rec, so Mr Swires, asked me Starbucks headquarters, because at the time he was doing the whole ask, and I see your eyes like.
Well, I'm going to guess. I don't know Starbucks headquarters, but it wasn't Buckingham Palace Road, was it?
Chiswick High Road.
Nowhere near it, was I? I had no idea where it was.
The reason I knew it was Chiswick High Road, he was doing the probing of like, where you working, what you doing, and I was like, oh, well, Starbucks. Oh, great. Oh, it gives me a whole spiel of like how Starbucks was founded, and it went down a tangent about Frasier, because that was based in Seattle, where Starbucks was founded. Anyway. He's like, statement from Starbucks headquarters. And I'm like, the only resemblance I have of it was there was a business card that when I worked at Starbucks, it said Chiswick High Road. It was a really high number. So I'm like, well, down that into Chiswick High Road somewhere. And when I left it, I'm like, well, it's either going to be on the north or the south.
I'm going to guess it's on the, if you're going out of London, it'd be on the right. If you're coming into London, it'd be on the left.
Yeah, on the north side.
Yeah, because on the left was empty if you went out of London.
On the left was nothing. There's like, And I just went, leave on left Chiswick High Road,
And banged it. So you didn't have no idea where it was.
No, I was in that, I was up for me rec. I'd already had a few good scores behind me. I'd done a few good runs before that. I think he got impressed with some of the other points. I was like, I'm having this, Yeah. And I think he kind of maybe conceded. I don't know.
It's a good pull. Have you done any?
Done what?
Blag the point. See, because when you do the point sheets, you're doing the point sheet. You've seen it come up for the past 5 days, and you've seen the answer for the past 5 days, and you kind of know. I remember what road it's in. I've just got to guess what side.
Two things about that. One was I was going up for an appearance. I think I might have been 21, so I was 28. So I don't remember now, but it was either one. I know the examiner, and whether you leave the name in of Mr Hall, it's up to you. But I made a phone call to see what was coming out before I walked in, and there was. Where's the cinema? Wandsworth Plain, isn't there? I had no idea that was there. There was a couple of other points. I had no idea. And I quickly looked them up on the phone, walked in and got them and scored. I'd never been there. I didn't know. Whether you leave that in, because it might spoil it for other people, that they're phoning up and they won't repeat the points that morning or that afternoon.
Oh, well, yeah.
So I might drop someone in it with that. But, and the other one, I'll tell you one good point. I think I may have said it before. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this is true. It was you saying Tony Swire, Mr Swire. He asked me, I always ask you some questions about yourself and your family, but he then asked me my first point, and he said, biggest McDonald's in the world. I know you're not going to get it, but I left a little pause there. It's on International Drive in Florida. That's because he'd asked me where my last family holiday was. I had already forgotten. I'm going, I don't know where that is. He said it was International Drive. I thought you would have got that. And he was my most enjoyable. Nothing against all the other examiners. They was all great. Every one of them, I think, is great. And although we rib them and everything else, but I do think they are. But he was my. I look back with such great memories. I only had one with Tony Swire, and I had he made me such at ease and everything else. That it's probably one of my best appearances because of him putting me at ease. And he was so off the cuff and freestyle, wasn't he? Really,
which is great. Yeah, and it's kind of. You're going off the cuff and freestyle, but with stuff that the student or the candidate could get. You know, if for example, if he asked me Dean Street to Warrington Crescent, it's off the cuff, but there's got to be in most people's repertoire. And he could pick this stuff that kind of, if you're looking out, we generally can find things that are related to ourselves and find them easier to remember. I mean, he was a I'm going to get a little tearful. He was a wonderful guy. I liked him a lot.
Yeah, he asked me David's Road, and I knew it was down by Forest Hall Station. I couldn't remember if you get it right out of it or not, so I went, I don't know that. I did know it, but I dropped that. So he asked me James. My middle name's James. My son's James. He asked me James Street. It's a Frampton
Said which
Street.
one?
Oh, and that's St James Street, the other one, isn't it? James Street. I said James. He asked me James Street to Frampton Street. That's like that name like that. So
I'm sure there's 2 James Streets.
Yeah, I came across one of them the other day. I'm like, there's a James Street there.
Yeah,
I think it's in the city somewhere.
Your one's Oxford Street. Yeah, that up there.
Yeah.
And then the other James Street. Right, we'll skip the James Street. We're going to a King Street. There's 4 King Streets.
Oh,
there's more than that.
Yeah.
Ain't there?
I don't know. Well, see if we get more than 4.
Cabbies, mate. I think I typed in King Street.
Within the 6 mile radius. So we go King Street, Hammersmith, and King Street, St James's.
Yeah. King Street
City, Cheapside.
The Wharf Road, King and Queen Street down there, isn't it?
King Street W6.
Yeah, they've done that, Hammersmith.
I'm just going roughly on the west coast. EC2.
Yeah, Cheapside and whatever.
King Street Mews, N2.
No, we ain't having that.
That's a bit up.
King Street N17, that's out, isn't it?
Yep.
King Street N2.
Finchley? No, bit.
N17's got more chance of being touching
N2 is going to be.
King Street SW1.
Which we had, St James's.
Yeah, that's St James's.
So we're free. There's
King Street W3.
Acton. Chiswick.
West Free, it's a bit far out. West Free, isn't it? That's outside this knowledge, isn't it? West Free? Acton, that's that hang around.
I think that's out, Tom. I'm sure there's 4 in. So we need the 4th.
Out, yeah. It's not too far from Horn Lane.
Is it the other side of Horn Lane?
It's just outside of it, yeah.
So you're from West. He doesn't. I know you may have moved there. You're from West, so he thinks they're in London.
Yeah, you can pick up a job there on the way.
There's Windsor.
SW1, TW1, UB2, W3, W6, WC2.
WC2, that's the other one. We missed it.
Yeah.
WC2. Covent Garden.
Of course.
Covent Garden. So there was 4 King Streets within the realms of the 6 mile radius that you could pull off. So we managed to get the 3 of them, but not the 4th. And I worked Covent Garden. I was there the other day buying my shoes.
Yeah, but he was my most enjoyable. I must admit, I do look back and think, I did enjoy it.
I tried engineering my rec one from him. So I'd already done a few scores. I think a few AK runs. I thought I probably scored here. Well, on those 2 at least. And then he's like, right, where else have you been pointing recently, Mr. Hutley? And I'm like, Trafalgar Studios, Whitehall? You know, like just keeping it central.
Yeah, so don't get too daring.
Like, where else have you been pointing? And I'm like, ooh, Charing Cross Road?
Yeah.
I think he saw through it.
He asked me that
down to Catford recently.
He asked me that where he'd been pointing. I'd actually walked along. I was up. They just moved to Baker Street as I finished, and I walked along Diorama Theatre. Is it pronounced like that? Diorama,
diorama. I say.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
What
a
is
diorama is a box that you make with a set in it.
He did tell me because he knew everything. He said, "Do you know?" I said, "I've just been there. Triton Street, is it that pedestrian little bit, but also you can go in and loop out, can't you?"
It's like a forecourt almost. Yeah.
Oh, this is the Euston, isn't it? That's where it is. Yes, it's Osnaburg.
Right by Miller Whitehouse.
Yeah, that's it. Right there.
Yes.
And that was, he asked me to go from there, and he said, "Where's your wife work?" Marks and Spencer's. I said, "Which one?" He went. And
Pantheon.
Yeah, Pantheon. So I went from there to Pantheon. Go on, do you want to call it?
No, from there?
At the time, I think at the time.
Well, it wouldn't be easy, would it? Because you're coming straight down at it. And is the Pantheon the one nearest to Tottenham Court Road or the one nearest Marble Arch?
You need Poland Street to get on it, don't you?
So you've got to come up and do a left out of Poland to be on the Marks and
Spencer's. You could use something simple like Great Marlborough, couldn't you? And come left.
You're going back to 30 years. I didn't need to do that. We'd come along Oxford Street, sit down and right.
No. But if you did that, we'd do Great Portland left, which we could do at the time. It was Hill Street, Hill Place.
Yes, Ramillies.
Left Great Marlborough, left Poland. But you can't do that now. It's shut, isn't it?
Shut. So now you'd have to just go straight down Regent Street, left Great Marlborough.
I suppose now, you do that. Yeah.
Left it at Poland. Poland.
I'll say this as well. This was the last one, and I thought I'd done probably enough to score before that. Although he doesn't like to nick points off you, tease you with points. And just as I went to go, he went, "How are you setting that down?" And I said, "I'm going to use Poland Street." He went, "Carry on." And I look back now and think he thought that he didn't want me to go to like Park Street right and set down on Oxford Street, say down that end. He didn't want me to mess it up. And fair play that he was just checking the last, and he let me run. He went, "Hey, you're good enough to be a cab driver. Out you get." And
what, he gave you a wreck?
No, I was. What was I then?
Oh, you're good enough to be a cab driver. First 56. There's your get your coat.
I think it was a written exam. No, I can't remember now. It wasn't. No, Chanel's was my wreck, wasn't it?
When he first came, he was very city orientated, and we've named Swire Junction after him, that kind of area there, and that was the reason that we chose that. He's just in that little bit on the left hand side of Cannon Street. There's a dozen roads in there that all go nowhere, do nothing, contain insurance companies and banks, and that was his little thing. And they were a little bit irritating, the points in there. You had the little roads to get in, the little roads to get out.
Then he used to ask livery halls and things like that, and that's quite important to this.
Yeah, I like the livery halls, but how many times have you dropped off at one?
No. And every time I've obviously been in the company, they go in the livery halls, and the event flyer comes through, and I'm like, Square, where's that? Barber Surgeons Hall.
Yeah. Oh dear. Yes, do some tests on that then. Stationers all.
Well, who are you testing? Me?
I test you.
Look at me.
Well, we done them, did the rambles we added to them as well, didn't we? And put more spins on them in the end, but then they shut streets, didn't they?
And they moved, didn't they? They moved. I think Carmen's was one that used to move, and Plumbers used to move. So it used to be, it would share a hall.
Yeah, like Insurers Hall was shared with firefighters, which still is, yeah.
Oh, those were
the embassies was great as well. The embassies were great. We could do all the spins on the embassies, couldn't you? I really liked those couple of categories and thought they weren't super difficult. They were interesting to learn. I liked embassies. Some people really struggle with them, but I think if you've got any perception of the world, it's nice to get.
Oh, that was one that Swire gave me on my rec. He goes, "Oh, you've been on holiday anywhere this year?" And I thought, as soon as I give him the destination, he's going to go, "Have they got an embassy in London?" And I said, "Yeah, Dominican Republic, sir." He's like, "Have they got an embassy in London?" "Yes, they have. Collingham Place." He's like, "All right, then let's go."
Yes.
Yeah.
But you made me think of Great Russell Street with that one. I know that's there, but the Great Russell Street has an embassy, or had an embassy that's linked to the Dominican Republic. Or am I thinking of the Dominion Theatre just around the corner?
I think you might be. Yeah. No, I'll tell you what was there. Wasn't there one near there, the Barbadian embassy or something like that?
It might be.
I haven't looked at them for a few years.
I've now remembered another one, the Caribbean, Eastern Caribbean states, or whatever it's called.
That's down at Kensington.
It is.
Kensington Court.
It is. Well done, son.
So I get a point for that.
You do get a point for that one. But what is it? I am right. It's Barbados High Commission in Great Russell.
It is.
So we're getting the whole of the West Indies done here in the embassies.
I would do them. I would, if I was doing the knowledge now, and I would do them because you know why? It's fun, and if you can take away the mundane, because it does get people down when they just keep going and they don't get a score. If you take away, go out and have some fun.
And one day you'll be driving along, it'll be in the back of your brain. You'll have a conversation with a passenger, and you go, "Oh yeah, that's the da 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 da," and then you just go down a whole web of it. And you think, "God, I'm glad I pointed that all those years ago."
Trinidad and Tobago.
There's about 4 though in Kensington, called 4 or 5.
There was a set of them as you went down.
One round the corner.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
Once you get to Victoria Road, you get your one where you just been Vietnam,
Victoria Road. Yeah.
But the Trinidad and Tobago was part of the 3 T's, which is the Turkish Trinidad Tobago is Belgrave Square.
It's more than that in Belgrave Square.
Oh, everyone's Syrian. There was 3 S's and a P. Portugal Spanish, was on the present.
Spanish, German,
West German, now German.
I mean, that was Embassy Central, wasn't it? Anything around Belgrave Square, Embassy Central.
And what about pubs? They still ask pubs on there? Because I mean, what made me think then is The Grenadier, when you've gone Belgrade, that's like...
Oh, yeah.
That was the pub that got arsed, wasn't it?
It's Wilton.
It's so out the way.
Is it Wilton Crescent?
Wilton Place, Wilton Crescent, yeah, the side there, isn't it? What's it called there? Wilton Mews or something?
It's a little thing, isn't it? It's a funny
back there, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Grenadier. Back when I first started, picture and pianos didn't exist, and then they started to open. Are they gone? Isn't they, picture and piano?
Yeah, that's sort of...
disappeared.
I can hear it, but I don't... Yeah, no.
So Picture and Piano was a chain of pubs that quickly took over, I think along the lines of Wetherspoons, so it might be all of them might be Wetherspoons now. And it was Picture and Piano to Picture and Piano to Picture and Piano to Picture and Piano. Yeah. And it was like, bloody hell, there's about 15 of them. They're all in different postcodes. That kind of annoyed me. I don't like learning the same name.
Well, I had that appearance of Mr Vittel. He goes, Burger and Lobster. I didn't ask him which one.
Same idea, yeah.
And I only knew one. It was on, I think, Bolton Street at the time. Or it might have been Clarges Street. I went, Clarges Street. And he went, no. Next point. Not the one I'm thinking of.
I think technically he's supposed to give the postcode now.
Yeah.
Give us a clue.
I don't know whether I should have questioned back, but again, that's the disadvantages of not going to a school. I didn't know. So
yeah, I did have this argument recently when I think the examiner, Mr White, had said no, they don't necessarily have to give the postcode. But I'm thinking, yes, when you're giving a Burger and Lobster to a Burger and Lobster or anything like that, or you're asking something that's 7 of them, it doesn't really make sense that you're going to now basically be able to say no, even if I'm correct.
Yeah.
So you should give the postcode.
I knew it was 100%. I couldn't name any other ones if you said any other ones, but...
Yeah, but if something's a one-off, then you don't need to.
No, no, of course.
Like the Albert Hall.
The Albert Hall.
I still ask which one, when not Albert Hall, but certain... if it's a point I can't pull and someone comes up and goes, oh, take me to this restaurant, there's only like one of them.
Yeah.
I just go, which one?
Yeah, you're doing Dave's trick. One in Blackheath.
One in Blackheath.
No, not that one. One in Kensington. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I pulled up, was it that last week before, and I was talking to you, remember I was talking to you on the phone, and I pulled up to talk to Dean on the phone, and he parked in Kensington, someone tapped on the window, and they went, Dishoom, yeah. And I went,
which one?
Which one? He said, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Which one? That turned out to be the one in Derry Street.
Yeah. Well, we had I don't know, again, might be repeating ourselves, which might bore people, but I did Charing Cross Station and they come out and wanted Hard Rock Cafe.
Yeah.
And no problem, I've done it. Go to as I'm going up Piccadilly now, I turn off into Bolton Street or whatever it was, and Brick Street, Down Street, and coming along the back to come down again to do a left onto Piccadilly to be on my left. But as I'm turning off, they said, where are you going? I said, Hard Rock Cafe, it's just up here. This is not where the Hard Rock Cafe is. And I get them, put up and said, look, Hard Rock Cafe. That's not the Hard Rock Cafe. You want the Hard Rock Cafe in Piccadilly? And I said, yes, the Hard Rock Cafe in Piccadilly. I'm thinking, no.
Both in Piccadilly, yeah.
And it's a bit stupid, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is a bit like, well, I mean, obviously, technically, it's Piccadilly Circus, the other one.
Yeah.
And I phoned people at the time, they didn't know it either. I'm sure I've said that story many times, so it might bore people, that one.
No.
Yeah, Hard Rock.
Where are we going this then? We come back on the Blue Books?
Yes, Blue Books.
Yeah.
So
that's where it all leads.
Here's one thing that I find with a lot of beginners is that they want to try to see and do the whole picture rather than understanding that it's a 1,000-mile journey with one step at a time. So they're thinking, what do I do next? Well, have you done Manor House Station at Gibson Square? No, well then don't worry about what you do next, because without that, there is no next. So one run at a time, be able to call it, learn as many as you can in a day, repeat it, move on, one book at a time, second book, finish 4 books. These are the steps. But they do get ahead of themselves. And back in the day, there were people, I've seen it happen several times, where they're doing the run, for example, Manor House Station, and let's say they're leaving from the north side of Green Lanes, crossing Seven Sisters Road. And they will try to add crossing Seven Sisters Road as being part of it, not realising that there will be a run later on that comes down Seven Sisters Road that you will realise is crossing Green Lanes, and you'll realise the connection later.
Oh, I see. So they put the word crossing as that mental frame to
where
no
we
one
are
crossing over a road, yeah.
Yes, and they've been doing it for loads, and it's this overkill of stuff that's going to accumulate just because you're doing the Blue Book runs. And to add to that as well, that's where the link runs and the reverse runs, it's an overkill in the same sense that if you've done the 320 runs, there are now enough roads in your repertoire nearly to run all of those with what you've got. But you can at least look at let's say the links, which will be slightly harder than the reverse. The links, you could look at it and say, what do I not know? And then learn what you don't know.
Yes.
Rather than going through 320 links and saying, I'll do all those. There's a load of them there that you'd know from the experience of the forwards. And for the reverse, it's even greater, The runs that you can, manifestation to Gibson Square works backwards.
Yep.
Thornhill Square to Queen Square doesn't work backwards exactly the same, but the one-way system that you will hit is learnt on other runs anyway, so it's not a difficult run to reverse. And this is the process of beginners point to point. Don't overkill yourself. So there are people at the moment doing this. So if you are doing this, I think you're making a bit of a mistake. You're doing the runs forward, you're doing the link, and you're doing the reverse. You are going to take a hell of a lot longer to complete your task, and you could have just done the 320 runs and seen how much of the other two aspects you didn't know and covered those just by the fact of what you didn't know.
I think that became my guiding principle later on in the knowledge, was that you learn more from what you don't know rather than just patting yourself on the back and doing everything right. Like when you call a point-to-point run and you do it amazingly, don't like pat yourself on the back and be like, yeah, aren't I great because I got the most perfect line. That's just should be standard. It's the ones when you get like a big old banana and you're like, ooh, I need to sort that out. So that's what you then need to look at and go, right, I need to bloody work on that, make a good note of that, and then just come back to it again and again and again.
And people beat themselves up. It always amazed me. They beat themselves up over the wrong answer. But yeah, I completely agree with what you said.
That's where the fault lies.
Yeah.
It's like going to the dentist and like, you know, they're going to find the tooth that hurts, and that's where they've got to focus their attention on it. No point looking at all the other teeth that are all perfectly fine. Yeah.
And I don't know if I said this before, but I made a mistake with a run that went to Harvey Nichols from Clapham Common. So it was maybe Clapham South Station. So from there to Clapham South Station, it's straight up over Chelsea Bridge. But I went all the way up Clapham to Elephant and Castle, came back across Westminster Bridge into Knightsbridge and done a left on the corner of Sloane Street and Knightsbridge to get to Harvey Nichols. And it makes this shape of a number 7. And it's brilliant compass. I've got this number 7 shape of where you're going up there and then come across there. And I obviously see Chelsea Bridge. And from the wrong answer, I have a really excellent shape embedded in my brain to create right answers. That kind of run of Chelsea Bridge would never go wrong again. So make mistakes, learn by your mistakes. Don't beat yourself up over your mistakes. Laugh at your mistakes and make them quickly. That's the other thing. Don't sit there for 20 minutes thinking about it and still do a run that's rubbish.
If you were sitting in the chair now, with all you know, how long would it take for you to start the calling?
Oh, dear. You mean really?
Yeah, so I give you 2 points, for instance, now.
Yeah, go on.
I'm not going to do it.
No,
And to give you 2 points, how long do you think I'm not saying you're going to take now, physically you take.
Well, let's test it.
How long do you think is acceptable?
Oh, I think a load of times acceptable.
Yeah.
Because, let's put it this way, right? The three of us here are experts. There's no doubt about that. We're experts at what we do. And if either one of us put either one of us on the spot right now, we would need to put our brain into a different gear, focus on what it is, just check a few things in our head. We'll even have a fear factor of the fact we're supposed to be experts. Put us in the cab and we'll drive away easily in the direction we want to go and arrive at our destination. But that's not the knowledge. The knowledge is come up with an answer and speak it. So I think this idea of always, if you're pointing out about hesitation, I think hesitation is a misnomer. It just shouldn't exist. It's a rubbish idea of telling someone that they need to know the answer, but you need to know it instantly. Give me a break. You let me think about it and come up with the right answer. And as I get to my choices, let me think about those choices. I am lucky because on my knowledge, hesitation didn't exist. There was no such thing. It came in the year 2000. I'd already been out 4 years.
Having said that, and there's 2 examples like this too. You got one guy that he called within 2 seconds. It wasn't the best line, but it was acceptable. And he called it really quick and he called it well and he called it within 2 seconds. There's another guy who's took several minutes, if you like. I could be over 6 to think of it. He's excruciatingly called it, mumbled his way through it, but he's called a better line. Who gets the score? Who gets the better score?
Oh, it's painful, isn't it, for the examiner to listen to? It can be very painful. But
under obviously the scoring system, it's the guy who hesitated that gets the worst score, really, doesn't it? It's because it is quite a killer in terms of marks. That's what it does.
I think that if you know yourself, you're sitting there at a set of lights and you're at a main junction or something, or it's Piccadilly Circus, for instance, and someone gets in, you can't be sitting there. Can you going? You've got to have that direction to be able to go.
Oh yeah, we have that initial direction.
You've got to be able to go, and that's the thing. I think that's why the hesitation. They're going. Would you be hesitating? The lights are green. Which way are you going to go?
We're not going to hesitate over that. I mean, if any question you ask any of us here, we instantly know roughly the direction we want to go in. So the first road that we leave by is probably, we could say instantly. But because we're now in a chair rather than on the road, we're not seeing the emerging options as best as we are on the road. When we're on the road, we know exactly what that one's going to do, and it ain't what I need, but this is what I need. But in your mind's eye now, you've got to project that and come up with those solutions. And in general, we come up with them quickly because it's a line that we have practiced, nailed it before, have a memory of it, so we know we're going to repeat it. Anybody figuring out a brand new line on the fly in an appearance is going to hesitate.
I didn't realise. I mean, are you insinuating that me having a break before answering the question is hesitation?
Yeah.
Because I didn't, whole knowledge, I didn't even realise that was a thing. I'll be completely honest. Every question I did on the knowledge, I spent at least a minimum of probably 30 seconds or so thinking it through.
Yeah.
And then I'd call, but then when I'd call, it'd be fluent. Like it wouldn't, there wouldn't be any sort of stopping, or at least from my knowledge, I wouldn't try and stop or it'd be quite fluent from that point onwards.
Did you have hesitation marks on the?
I did, like with the usual stuff, like when Mr Thomas would mark hesitation.
Yeah,
everyone got that.
Yeah.
But he even said, as soon as you walk in, he's got 2 points of hesitation. It's like, why?
But no, I didn't. I always assumed that hesitation was going mid calling, and I probably did do that to a degree. That's probably natural. But I would kind of sit about 30 seconds or so, think of a good option. Like I'd maybe come up with a good option in, like 20 in the 20 seconds or so, and then maybe just have a few more seconds to think, can I get this a little bit tighter? Then I'd go for it. And that never really caused any bother or issue for me. So
yeah.
I didn't even realise this. It counted into...
As you said, you didn't go to a school. Did you call over anyone? Have a call over?
I had a call over partner, yeah.
I never went to
Only one?
school. So me and you both never
You
went
didn't
to
go to
school.
Wizan Knowledge School?
No. It was just me and my brother. And the thing is about going to a school, there are major advantages, especially if you don't know what you're doing. But I was coming from a line of cab driver friends, and we all kind of had the idea of what we was supposed to be doing. So if you know the disciplines and what you're trying to achieve, a lot of people who are not going to a school really have no idea what they're trying to achieve. They have no idea of the standards of others, which is a very important thing. When you see somebody, for instance, calling Blue Book fluently, you instantly aspire to call Blue Book fluently. Yeah. But if you're not doing that, you think everybody's calling it a little bit ropey. And when you're doing point to point, you sit down with any of us in the heyday, and it's a question we've practiced before, then obviously it gets flied out. That's done. Let's do the next one. They are not seeing that, and they're answering their questions much more slowly and still getting them wrong. I do believe that no matter how fast or slow you answer it, it's pretty much going to be the same answer, and it's going to be wrong. You may as well get it wrong quickly than to take time to get it wrong.
About going to a school or not?
Oh, going to school, yeah. So I didn't. You didn't. It isn't a necessity, and I used to always tell people it's not a necessity.
Having a call-over partner was a massive...
Oh, an absolute necessity, yeah.
You need something of that, because the amount... That probably shaved many months off.
Yeah. If you go to a school, you've got multiple people there to bounce off as well.
Yeah. No, I do think there is
I think you hit something there as well when you said about having someone in the family, because that is so true. That's why so many people, like sons and nephews and nieces and whatever, did, because they had someone to tell them how the knowledge, like we're saying here, they would have told them how the knowledge works. If you didn't have someone in the family, and you didn't go to a school, you would be going up and down like basically dead end roads, wouldn't you? Like find yourself wasting your time doing something.
That's probably a survivorship bias then, almost, isn't it? Whereby there was a lot of people who have friends and relatives within the cab trade, as a result that they had friends and relatives in the cab trade to get them into it.
Yes.
So that would have been the more dominant than someone who doesn't have.
Yeah.
At least back in those sort of times before schools were more.
Absolutely, there were more. Basically, that was the advertising. Yeah. You would persuade whoever it was that you cared about. You wouldn't just say it to anybody. It would be someone you cared about. You'd say, this is for you. You need to do the knowledge. It's going to be great. And I don't know if I've been away from it a long time, but I don't think it's happening as much.
Well, I think back then that was a very clear, I did this is the results you get. And if you look at the other paths and options that would have been available to you in society at that time, there would be a lot less options. Now it feels like there's too many options. Well, you can go and be a superstar on YouTube. You can go do TikTok. You can go to university. You can go do all of these other things. And it's just like paralysis through analysis. There's too much stuff to do.
Yeah, and they're all looking for the...
short-term gratification.
Yes, least resistance, isn't it? The path of least resistance. Yeah. Whereas I have to say, I think driving a cab, if with our expertise, if I was a teenager, if I was 18 years old, I know for a fact that the best path I could take with the skills that I most likely have from my common or garden background would be to do the knowledge immediately.
100%.
And have my badge by 21. And then from that, you can springboard with the safety net of a really secure job for life to try to do other things. So your YouTube channel, for a start, your YouTube channel is about the taxi trade, but it could have been about anything. But if you wasn't a taxi driver, then there would be no supplementary income.
No, yeah.
So your YouTube channel would have to work.
Like, yeah, this is it. Like you could very easily, many people could go and start a business and in 3 years it could be really profitable and you could make way more money than you could in a cab. 3, 5 years, whatever. But it's not a proven path. Like you don't know. It could happen, it might not. But with the knowledge, it's a pretty certain path that if you just go in, do these steps, commit, turn up, get the scores, it will happen.
Major security.
That's the great thing about it, is that it's just a case of when. You just plug it in and go.
Ginger Cabby asked a question the other day, which was quite deep. For Aaron, it was quite deep. How long do you think we got left?
I don't.
Did you feel that silence?
You made the sound of something from Star Trek.
I don't think we actually know, do we? And I say my suspicion, with the apps getting involved in the knowledge, I kind of think that the first things to go will be private hire.
Yeah.
And I don't mean all go totally. They will start to go because some of their journeys will be replaced. I don't think black cabs will go for a long while. They'll be the last thing to go because of the stations and hotels. And also, I'll give you another example. I don't know if I've said this on here before. If you was a lone female at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in a dark winter's night, walking out of a restaurant to get a cab, would you rather that there be 3 driverless cars that you've got to try and tap your credit card in to get in? It's now not working. There's no signal. And there's strange guys hanging around that you now feel frightened? Or would you rather 3 black cabs with 3 black cab drivers standing there? You can instantly get that help.
You've gone down the driverless route, but I don't think it's going to be that would finish it off. I think that's still a long way off.
Yeah.
In like central London kind of realm stuff, because we've got sort of driverless trains, but there's still operators, planes and stuff like that. I think there's way too much nuance to driving that can't be just replaced overnight with driverless.
Well, you've hit it when you say even the fact that we have driverless trains, the things are on tracks, they can't get lost. Yeah. So therefore, the driverless train isn't even going for it on a safety aspect of one thing goes wrong and you lose a whole trainload of passengers.
But couldn't you have something similar to that? Like they do in Disney, I don't know if it's the Epcot Centre word, at Disney, they have them cars that are on tracks. They're not actually on physical tracks. They'd be on physical routes.
Like those pods they do at the Terminal 5,
that go from central London to, say, Terminal 5. So you may find the airports or whatever it is. But they're going to have just journeys that go to set places.
This is one of the reasons it doesn't work, I think. I'm not sure if it was Singapore. You'll have to ask your daughter. But one of the cities is very, very modern and its roadways are very modern. And the driverless cars work based on the painted lines that are in the road. So it can read those easier than it can do. And that was where it didn't work in London so much about that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Well, that's going to be an interesting business to invest in, like line painting businesses. You know what I mean? Because they actually said this, like apparently with some of the Tesla employees, Elon Musk was getting really pissed off that like one of their driverless cars was like failing in a certain part of LA where they were testing the cars. And he was like, fix it, the problem, fix it. And the engineers are like, well, we can't because of this. He's like, well, fix it. And the only way the engineers could get around it is they literally went to the place where there was badly
painted lines.
So just repainted them, and then the car didn't make the same mistake after that.
Yeah, see.
But also, couldn't they put something in the road or in the paint that
I thought that was what it was. I was thinking that there was something special. It could be even a colour. I mean,
so
there could be
like a UV that it reads.
So you could have a set journey from a set place in central London to a set place.
It wouldn't even need to be a set journey, would it? Because the lines could go off anywhere and it would be following a painted track.
They're not going to have them everywhere like a black cab does at every hotel, everything. They're going to start off by having those at an A to B thing, aren't they? So from one station to another maybe, or whatever, I don't know, to the airport, which I kind of think would...
that's going to be the problem that's going to kill us off, though. I think.
What do you think's going to kill us off?
Well, someone said, I remember a cab driver saying years ago, just when you're ranking at King's Cross, look at the opposite side of the street, so you're right, and you see that whole parking bay that's just full of Ubers there like that. That's kind of what could do it. Ubers having more and more bays where they can pick up from.
And they're not supposed to be there. It's a 2-minute thing, but they're
exactly. But it's effectively a rank.
Yeah, they're not policed. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that isn't killing us off in the sense because Uber is now becoming too expensive. Their drivers are now very, very quick turnover because they're not earning the money. Uber's taking up to 50% of the fare from the drivers. So the reason, as we pointed out with Free Now and Addison Lee are trying to invest into the taxi side of it, is because they get some better retention on the drivers that are doing their circuits are on it because they're being funded to do the knowledge, so they stay. Whereas the drivers have got a quick turnover. They're coming in to drive for free now and then thinking, I ain't doing this, and then they're sodding off again. So it seems that many of the regulations that have come in, such as VAT and stuff like that, has really, the private PHV market, it's very sad because it would be better off now if it went back to what it was with minicab offices. Minicab offices.
Radio circuit.
They could have their own app per office, and you would know your local company is your local app rather than a local phone number is what we had, and go from there.
And that feels like the sort of like demand for areas of London that obviously black cabs just aren't going to be able to cover.
Yeah, and now we're all doing the same area. So what do you do? We used to hear there was 3 or 4 minicab offices. Now there's none. So, and the Uber and whatever, they're covering Canary Wharf and trying to cover all the big places that we do.
If you was to start the knowledge today, knowing what you know now, what would be the 3 things that are vital for someone to do?
Speak to someone who's done it before.
Mm-hmm.
Who's done it in a good time.
Yes, it actually would be the key factor.
That's like just a good hack for anything in life.
Yes. Don't speak to someone who took 9 years to do the knowledge.
Don't speak to a fat person if you want to get in a good shape. Don't speak to a broke person if you want to get rich.
Yeah.
Like, speak to someone who's done it before. Yeah.
Good tip.
That's a good tip.
Dean, come give us a tip.
A tip. Remember that it's a marathon in a sense, and don't try and think too far ahead. Look at the one job at hand. Can you learn Manor House Station at Gibson Square? If you can't learn Manor House Station at Gibson Square, then don't worry about it, because there it is. People try to get ahead of themselves. They want it all. One step at a time.
My one would be join a school.
Knowledge point.
Whizzam preferably, but listen, if you're going to do that, I'd rather you did the knowledge than didn't do it. So yeah, knowledge point as well. So it's just a different way of doing it, that's all. But yeah, just join a school, because there's so much information there. As we've said, if you haven't got a lot of family,
you're right.
and your family may have done it 30 years ago.
Yeah, they can be a bit out of date.
You could be out of date. You could
might
not quite remember it. It may not be the same way. Or something,
Also try not to speak to cab drivers about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not speak. You can speak to them about it, but I mean, like, they can't be your call over partner.
Yeah,
because my knowledge is corrupted now from driving. It's not the knowledge anymore. The other final one is that you learn from your mistakes better than what you know.
Absolutely.
Push aside everything. Like, once you've learned it, done it. Like, you don't need to recall over easy stuff because you're not learning anything new.
Yep. Yeah, this brings up the issue about points. People revise long lists of points, not realising that in that long list is Buckingham Palace, Euston Station, BBC rehearsals, Millwall Football Club, Arsenal Football Club. You've just spent 10 minutes telling yourself what you already knew, rather than progressing and expanding by revising the ones you were weak on the ones you've only just visited. These are the important ones.
Spaced repetition. You just move them ones into the really, like, remind me in a year's time.
They come on the point sheet. So you're going to do the point sheet today. You're going to get Paddington Station to BBC rehearsal. So you think, well, fine, I know those two, easy. So the bigger ones are on the point sheet each day. They don't need any revision whatsoever. Make sure you're revising the more obscure.
And the last thing I would say as well, if you're going to do the knowledge now, and even though just say, for instance, you've only got 20, 30 years left in it, and you're young, but you did say recently that you think it could possibly go to a financial way where you're like New York. Right. Would that not mean then that if you did it now, and in 20, 30 years, you might have something worth money that you could sell on? They couldn't take it off you, could they?
No.
But would they take away the right? They couldn't take away the right to sell it on if they're selling it on. Surely you would own that.
I would suspect that would we hold the badge. So if you're going to make a medallion system like New York, then we own the badge and it would be mine to sell. I'd suspect.
I would always just say, out of my cold dead fingers is the only way they will get my badge back.
Charlton Heston.
It's too hard. It's just too hard to get it to say, oh yeah, here you have it back. I'm not going to do it anymore. Or
what could you have then? You'd have a different system, which is you can keep your badge and keep working, but the guy who's coming through has got to pay 250. Well, if we're going in the future, he's going to be paying £500,000 to £1 million definitely for his badge to work. as a cab driver.
And then he would need to be able to sell it on to recoup that money.
He would, yeah, but he's got a bought one. Yeah. You haven't got a bought one.
Yes, I bought it with my money, blood, sweat and tears.
If anybody has any tips that you want to pass on to anybody who's doing knowledge about how to do the Blue Book, how to do points, then just put them in the comments below, and then I'm sure that you'll have some interesting information that somebody will learn something from. Thomas, thank you. David, thank you.
You're the man. You're the man.
I think that was a nice podcast.